You are,
I'm Brendan Brown.
and I'm Lynx White, and we are Discovery Monkey Labs. We talk about all things mind, all things related to behavior, mind, and overcoming obstacles, achieving success, shifting your reality. We are reality architects, and we work to help people shift their realities. And
Yeah, we named the podcast. What do we name the podcast? That's how organized
this
we
is
are.
your. These are your. What do we
These-
name this?
this is your-
This is your circus, and these are your monkeys. And that is one of the things that people don't understand is
Yeah.
that like your habits, your behavior, yours. Well, no, I don't want to say all people don't understand, but a lot of people.
Well, it's glossed.
Miss-
It's glossed over.
Thank you for
It's like it goes over their head or it goes through their head and through the ear, one ear out the other, and they don't recognize what that means
that.
necessarily.
This is your circus. These are your
Yeah.
monkeys. Yes.
And yeah, we were just talking about it outside. It's like we get to a point where we are considering this kind of stuff with people, and it's really important sometimes, but it just it gets lost, and that's not necessarily a problem. Only when it becomes a problem is when change comes around, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then it comes right into your face, and you're like, oh, I got to deal with it now.
So that said, we started with our topic for today. Well, let's start with our topic for today, which is I did a little short on this week, and I think this is a big one. If you think about your life as you got, did you see this? Like, you see this a lot with people. We go, "How are you today?" We're always asking people, "How are you today?" And we notice, at least I notice, a lot of people are like, "I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired." And there's a lot of people that I'm so tired. We got this. You're like this potential ball of energy. You have this ball of potential energy. You have this potential energy, and you can do great things with it, or you can do not so great things with it. So you wake up every morning with this potential energy, and a lot, and some of it has to do with your diet, your how much sleep you got, but also your habits. But you got this potential energy. Whatever the potential energy you got for the day, is what you're doing increasing that energy for you, or is it depleting that energy for you based on your habits? So I'm going to ask you: Do you want to start with this topic? Do you have something to say about this? 'Cause you see this all the time.
Well, do we want to tell them where this inspiration came from, or is that a rabbit hole that we? Because I think it's important in the context of which it was thought about. I like where you're going with this because there's a creative cycle, but then there's sometimes this stagnancy of potential energy that can be used, but then there's gathering that energy, building the energy, and making sure that you can. Uh, it's like building parts of an engine, and then there's these gears that are all over, and then there's these belts that go around these gears, and that creates sort of like this this part of all these different parts of the system make that energy, and sometimes that energy gets lost with friction. Sometimes this energy gets lost like where the belts start to wear out. Sometimes you got to replace the belts. um, I like talking about this as either in physics, and not even to go to physics, but I'm going there. If there's
That was why I said potential energy. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
I said potential. You got
that's-
this potential energy.
isn't
That's a
that
physics
used
term.
is
Yeah,
that used in
physics.
physics? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
potential energy
or
I'm
physical
just-
science.
Potential energy. There's potential energy here.
And there's kinetic energy, and then there's this change of
Where are you going with this?
well, so there's all different types of energy, but it's interesting in the context of people's lifestyles. what are people using that for, and how do they get that energy built up in their energy stores so that they're able to use it effectively? That's
I
where
was
my interest is.
well. I
Like,
was figuring. I was
maybe
figuring.
being selfish.
What I was figuring this. We have this. We both have these experiences where we work together with people. We work individual with people, and from what I've seen in my own experience, and from what I've also seen from when we work together, and when you've told me, hey, I have this situation where I'm seeing this happening.
Mhm.
There's things that people invest their energy in during the day that sort of fill them up. They give them more energy, they give them more. So for example, if you get up in the morning and you go work out and you go for a swim, there's some mornings where I'm feeling like I'm dragging. I'm like, we need like 6 a.m. Like, let's go to the pool. We go swimming, and then I feel great. Then I'm ready. I got all this energy. I'm ready to go for the day. And then there's people who take their energy and they don't do anything with that potential energy. So, and you see this a lot when you're working with people with pain and the body, right? They just kind of sit and then the energy stagnates. And not only does the energy not go anywhere, it's like they have less energy and then it starts to turn on them and they start to have pain, they start to have stiffness, they start to have, so they're not doing anything. There's nothing firing them up. So you invest in your passion, you invest in something you're passionate about, it feeds you more, right? So if you get your day focused around things that you're passionate about and that bring you growth and change, you seem to get more energy. It builds. You spend the day watching TV or sitting on this all day and just watching it. The energy gets depleted, and then
It gets harvested almost in a sense.
that's a
right?
good way to look at it. This harvest,
If it was like a crop you were growing,
yeah,
I don't mean to use that analogy
No, it's good.
only, but
That's
there's
good.
tons of other analogies.
a crop, yeah.
It's like harvesting that attention and focus.
Or there's
and,
there's bugs eating it. There's bugs eating it. Yeah, there's stuff eating it.
But
And
how
then
are you
there's
watering that
well,
plant?
then there's in that case that would be like the first one, I think. So like if you're investing, sunshine and nutrients and all this watering and into
What
the first,
environment is it?
that's your passion, right?
Oh,
If
okay.
it's stuff you're passionate about, there's three. I'm going to tell you the third. So I've seen
Too
people
bad
who
we couldn't
invest.
write this down for
I
people.
can.
Oh,
I
did you
can.
bring a-
Look at this. Look at
him
this.
go.
Look at this. All right, I can't. Well, look at this one.
It's
This
a
is-
dirty whiteboard. We apologize.
But this is all. I don't have a rag here. So we got three things. I hope this works. So this is like what you're passionate about. So your passion, right? And then you got people who can you see that? I know it's green, but let's just say sitting or not. Not moving. What do you call that? What's the word I'm looking for?
stagnation. Or
Stagnation, but what's it called? Like a sedentary.
Yeah.
So like even in you're in an office, all day long, and all you're just sitting.
Yeah.
You see this all the time. It's like so it's like sedentary. How do you spell Terry? Did I spell that right? Sedentary.
SEDEN, but that's all
E-N.
right.
All right, yeah.
I think people get the idea.
Ian. All right, my English background is Sed and Terry. Okay, so sedentary lifestyle, right? So, and then the third one is you can use that potential energy to create destruction. Okay, so these, and by the way, this is not the be all end all. This is not like the Bible of everything. These are just things that I've seen and you've seen, we've seen in our work, and you have had a lot of experience with this one. I've I've had a lot of people I've seen do this one, and we've both seen this, and we try to live by this one. So what happens is that
Could you also create like the number one? Is it creativity or is
well,
it
that
more?
could be a passion. That could be a passion.
It's
if
a
you're
type
creative.
of passion.
I,
Okay.
I would say that you're being creative when you're exploring your passion, whatever it is. So like a mathematician who is exploring their passion is, the mathematician is exploring their passion. They're being creative. So we got the three. So we got these three, and you can't see them real good right now, but so the first one we got, when you take that potential energy and you're expressing it into things that you're passionate about and that like sort of feed you, seem to build more energy, get more energy.
So it's what, uh, and obviously there's rests and breaks in between this maybe, and sometimes it helps to kind of break the passion or the learning something new into pieces so that you're not always going to be at that level, right? I mean, or could you be at
I
that
don't know.
level
I don't know why
of number
I'm
one, the passion?
personally working towards filling my days with that which I'm passionate about, and the more I seem to do that, the more energy personally I seem to get. And I work with people who are business owners, and we've seen people who like they do what they love, they're passionate, they're working on their business is growing, and they're doing, and they but they also have kids, they also have grandkids or whatever, and they're doing everything they love, and they feel like they're filled up, and that their life is filled with energy.
So that's that reinvesting.
But you
part
got, but
into
that is kind of
yourself.
creative. That is so. What you said a little while ago, you said, is it creative? So there's a sort of creative aspect to it. You're doing things towards positive. So if you take your energy and you're investing it in towards building habits and building a life that you don't have to take a vacation from,
Mhm.
and habits that like, well, I'm going to work out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work at things that I love to do, I'm going to structure my business and my life around things that really
I'm
bring
gonna
me
work on
joy.
planting, gardening. I'm gonna work on whatever hobbies that fulfill you and lead you in a direction that's going to allow you to accomplish your goals, building skills, new things that you've always wanted to do, that you wanted to study, and just immerse yourself in that learning process, because that's how it was when I was a kid. When I grew up, I was always learning something new, and that always kind of led me to the next thing.
And you were on a farm, right? So you were like a horse farm, so you were learning
Yeah,
how to ride
just
and
learning how to ride, take care of animals, learning new skills that are going to be necessary to help you build a discipline. I think is another part of it too. With a lot of this stuff, sometimes people need another person to help them with that, but sometimes people have good discipline themselves if they tapped into it.
well, that third one, the destruction, can you see it? Well, anyways,
Yeah,
backwards, but
probably
anyway,
not.
the third one, destruction, is what happens when you don't have the discipline. And I'll talk about that in a minute.
Wow.
So the first one we got passion, and the second one we see it with a lot of people
Is
who
it
are
like
dealing with
freezing?
pain.
Where they freeze? Do you think it's a freezing thing?
I
And I'm using the word freeze because they're it's almost like they're fearful of moving forward, so they don't know where to
actually
go.
I have a lot of experience with this one personally. So if should I share? I share it. So
Well, we're talking about our experiences
Yeah,
here to share with people how
when
we've
I
overcome that.
when I was a college professor, that was just the wrong life for me. I needed to be working with people more dynamically. The environment itself was very stagnant. There wasn't a lot of growth. There wasn't a lot of learning. I don't see the college environments or academic environments as a place where people are really open to new ideas. Especially the colleges I was working at in Chicago, they were, man, if you had any new ideas about things, they didn't particularly care about that. And I would get into a situation because I had spent so much time in academia where I would freeze. I would want to do something new, but I would freeze. And I was trying to publish at the time a lot of my novels and things, and I would work on something and I would freeze. And I got finally to the point where I quit. I said, I can't do this anymore. This is stopping me. And I would, and around that time, I had started to learn about hypnosis, and I was working with people with hypnosis, and I started to learn about my own habits and patterns, and my mentor, who was a master hypnotist, started to show me how I would get to a point where I would start on something, I would get fearful, and I would straddle, and I would freeze. So when that happened, I think this did happen, and I have a tendency to like when I do that, like I'll gain weight and things like that. So I gained weight, and then but if I'd get motivated and I go to the gym, so I'd lose the weight and I'd get more active, my mind would get more. So like when I did the creative stuff, then I would be more motivated and I would get more you know
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, and I would write more, and I that's when I wrote how many books I wrote. I've written like 7 books. I wrote like 5 or 6 novels, and when I was in the situation where I was straddling, I was in the academia. I felt like that was more of a sedentary life. You would just sit and talk about writing, but when I got away from it and I invested in my passion, I actually wrote 5 novels, and then I actually hit the bestseller with 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So so the so that was the sedentary. It was like not moving, but you see it, and I want to get to the destruction one. That's where you go the opposite direction. But you
Yeah.
see it with people with pain stuff, like they don't.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's when they've taken the action, they've done the habitual pattern, then they go into a sedentary lifestyle, they're watching TV, or they're not using their creative faculties to actually create something, whether that's, a drawing or a painting or working on gardening or growing their own food or herbs or spices or whatever they could do in their own environment. um, I think the sedentary lifestyle starts to happen because they're not breathing. I think that was one of the shorts that we were doing that was proving that if you stop, take a breath, and then take the action and realize what it is that you can change, that breath is that impetus, that oxygenation that our muscle tissues, like our physical body, needs in order to change, whether that's stretching a muscle, whether that's constricting it, making it stronger. There's this action potential that our muscles like typically physically need in order to lift a weight or to move. And so when they sit for a long time, or when they're doing the same thing, like they sit in the same way, they don't stretch, they don't take that action that they need that'll change that outcome for them, their muscle shortens. Like literally, it's like sitting in this chair is like a flexion of the hip. So if they're constantly flexing the hip, it's shortening these muscles right here in between. So what does that do when it's asked to stretch, like extend? It's going to have to pull that strength and actually make a torsion move to stretch the muscle so that it can go the other way. It's like the pendulum swing. It's like if they're only here in this, we need them to be here. The difference between that this being right here and this, it's like that's how far they need to go, but they're only willing to do this small little back and forth thing. And so
So
what
when they don't, so when they're sitting like that, the muscle actually it actually shortens, and then it's harder for them to be. Is that why they get so much pain?
Yeah,
And then
because it
okay,
can do less
okay,
work. The
okay.
muscles can't do as much work as it was required to do, or if at one point it was able to do, because it's in this little range down here. So,
So when we work out
yeah,
and we walk and we run and we exercise and we do all those things or play games or whatever, like because people at our gym will go play tennis or basketball or whatever, they're creating an elongated.
in some cases, unless they're
Working out like
yeah,
weightlifting
well, unless they're
tightness.
like making sure that they're not, because some people have only a certain range of motion,
Mhm.
and sometimes if they're, that's sometimes when injury can occur, is when they're only have that limited range of motion, but their muscles or their bones have asked it to do something that it just can't handle. Um, but that's physical stuff. But where does that show up
Well, I see it
first?
when I
You
see when
think?
people are not flexible up here, they when I do notice. I have noticed this ever since when I was younger. I was in dance when I was in college. I was in dance and things like that, and I noticed that if you tell yourself you can't up here, you get very rigid in your body, and you get very stiff. And I noticed that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, because our thing was in the PE department in the college I was at, and I noticed that people who were kind of rigid in their thought processes there had very limited flexibility. So, and then
Yeah.
over the years in my work, I have found that people who are who lack flexibility up here tend to start to get stiff in their bodies as well. So, if you take that ball of potential energy we were talking about in the beginning, and then you don't do anything with it, well, what happens to the energy? It seeps into. I think what you said is it gets harvested by something else. Our attention goes into the TV, it goes into the sitting, it goes into the whatever people. Because a lot of times when people are sitting, they're not just sitting, like they're living in the past, or they're living in their fears, or living in their worries, which brings us to the third one, which is destruction. And I see this a lot when I work with people. If people will invest their potential energy into destructive habits, and then they can't get up to the passion, the creativity, the positive habits, because they're so busy investing in their destructive habits. So this is where addiction comes in. Every night I got to drink, every night I got to smoke. Here in California, there's a lot of I'm afraid, so I'm gonna do drugs or this, instead of working on making the mind stronger and more adaptable and developing habits that can get someone where they want to go. They'll do something that's destructive and ends in their sedentary. So it like feeds them right into the sedentary. So like a lot of times I see with people who are wanting to quit, I have people who want to quit smoking or want to quit drinking or want to quit smoking pot because they found that they don't do anything else in their life. They'll engage in this destructive habit, and there's a reason behind it. There's a belief behind it. There's something behind that. So they're either trying to escape something, they're trying to escape a fear, they're trying to numb something, because these things they're like pain medication.
Well,
So
it's
and then
knowing
it
that they
feeds
aren't
into this.
using. It's knowing that they're not using that potential energy, which compounds. I think to a certain extent, people are aware or have an awareness of that habit that maybe they've just stuffed it down so deeply that they've buried so much other things on top of it that they can't get to that potential energy again to use it. It's almost like a
I got a good example for that.
seed
I got a
of
good example
something.
from what you just said. So let's say that they start when they're kids, and I've seen this a lot, like people who smoke or people who drink or people who do pot. They started when they were kids because they wanted to be accepted.
Mhm.
So there was a fear of not being accepted, of being on the outside. So it started as a fear of not being accepted, and they started to do that for that. But then it becomes layered. Smoking is a big one, and when I was a kid, I smoked, and I had to, I had to. I separated myself out from the habits and the circumstances so that I would quit. And when I quit, I quit. I'm like, I'm done.
Mhm.
But some people have a hard time with that because it becomes layered. They go in the beginning maybe because they want to be accepted, right? But then they start to smoke for stress relief, and then they start to smoke because they're bored, and then they start to smoke. So now you've got all these different layers to the habit, right? And then when we work with them, we'll hit one layer, and then we'll go, okay, let's take a little bit of time, and then maybe a week or two comes, and then the next layer comes up, and then we work with that layer,
And we
and then
fix
and we
that.
fix that layer, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? So that's what you're talking about. So maybe in the beginning it was this fear of not being accepted, which is like right down at the base of all of it, that they've stuffed down so much, and then maybe they go from drinking or from smoking to drinking, and then maybe they go from drinking to pot, and maybe it gets something else, and
Or
deep down,
eating fast food.
or eating
or
fast food or
or
something.
going eating unhealthy food. Maybe that's
Sugar,
a
maybe
better.
it's sugar or something like that.
Yeah.
But they use it so like they're lonely or they feel afraid or whatever, and they take the sugar to calm them. And
Mhm.
but there's something else going on with the food and how much sugar they put in it, which actually hits the brain in a way that causes addiction. So there's another piece to it too. But in the beginning, there was that habit that maybe the sugar was associated with good. The mom or dad gave you candy, and it was a good feeling, and then
There's this reward kind of that is looking to be achieved, right? And it's the reward piece that people are working towards, but sometimes I don't think they have that structure down to where they could change the reward and have it accomplish numerous things too. I
and be
think
better for them and be something relating to your passion. So, for example,
yeah.
when I was younger and I started smoking, I think I used, I remember when I was in graduate school, I would we'd be in a class and it would be a long time, and then I'd go, okay, let's, like I remember a friend of mine, she was in all my classes, and we'd look at each other when the break came, and we'd run downstairs onto Michigan Avenue. We're standing on Michigan Avenue smoking, and I remember one day standing on the corner of Michigan Avenue and Harrison in Chicago, looking up at the skyscraper, smoking a cigarette, going, if I don't get out of this city, I'm going to die. This is going to kill me. There was something about the pressure of everything, and I was using this thing to manage all of that. And now I can't even imagine doing something like that. You're like, because like I'm so busy working on what do I want to do that I love to do. That becomes the reward in itself. And at the end of the day, I go, wow, I got this done, I got this done, I got this done. So you can shift your life and your habits. And I think this is, we again, we don't want to make this too long. So I want to sum up. Is that cool? So sum up. So to sum up, you are this big ball of potential energy, and you have a decision to make every moment of every day, of every hour, every second. The decision is yours. Do you want to use that potential energy that you have, however much it is? And if you start comparing your energy to someone else's energy, you're missing it. You have this ball of potential energy that you can invest in your passion and in creative things, in sedentary things, just letting it just like a slow leak, letting it leak out on its own without using it for anything, or for destruction. And it's your choice what you want to use these for. So what we're suggesting is that there is a way for you. If you're doing these two things, there's a way to get up to the passion. It can be done. You can change your whole life. Don't settle for these. When I was in school, once someone said to me,
"It's a trap."
It's
What's
a trap.
That meme?
It's a trap. It's Admiral Akbar from Star Wars. So someone said to me something when I was in school, when I was in grad school, that was great. It became something that I kept with me my whole life. She said to me, "There are enough cowards in the world. You be brave." So there are enough people in the world who settle for this. You go for the passion, go for the creativity. If you can, you'll see you can become one of the people who changes the world.
I think we'll end on that note, and we look forward to seeing you to the next episode.
And subscribe
to our channel. Share
with everyone.
People who are interested in developing their passion
and their
inspiring
minds,
their creativity and their
and using their energy for creativity and for creative things.
And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. We wish you a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon, wherever you are in the world.